Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. I'm Nick and this is MSFS Flight Plan's one man's attempt at saving the world through simming. And I really think we might be able to pull it off if we can just last long enough for everyone to figure out what we've got going on in here, which is awesome all the time. Today we're finally going to be making our way out to Rome, Italy, and it occurred to me as I was taking my first test flights out here that despite flying into old LIRF down on the coast dozens of times in my big commercial jets, I'd never really taken a nice close look at this city, and I am just totally blown away by how good it looks. I mean, I'd heard that it looked pretty good, but it is just astounding. And not only that, but I didn't really have any performance issues either. And you know, usually if you have a nice photogrammetry city, which this is, you get a lot of stuttering and stuff, but I was having no issues at all. But this is a fairly simple plane. And what I did pick out is the Piper J-3 Cub by Classic Aircraft Simulations, which I think is an amazing little plane. Looks incredible, ton of fun to fly. And just a little warning to you guys, I accidentally bought the one in the marketplace thinking this was the same one because I'd watched some reviews and it looked awesome, and I was like, yeah, I'm definitely getting that. And I paid $9.99 for it in the marketplace and then got in there and I was like, this doesn't look the same. Like the paint was the same, like the livery was the same, but like it didn't look like worn and dirty like the other one. I was like, what is going on? And then I realized that this one is not sold in the marketplace. You can only get this one right now on Contrail, Just Flight, and Sim Market. And it was about 17 bucks at all those, but I think it's totally worth it. But now I have an extra Cub that I haven't flown yet, and that's the one in the marketplace, which is also pretty well reviewed, so maybe it'll be perfectly fine. All right, let's get in and start it up. When I was watching the reviews for this, I watched two different reviews, and neither of them started it up manually. They both use this little tablet down here, so I'm not sure. I couldn't find a manual, so I don't know how to do it. You can grab the propeller and fling it around a few times, but it won't start it up, so I'm just going to push the start like everyone else was doing. If you have this and you know how to start it manually, I'd like to give it a shot, so just let me know about that. So before we do that, let's take a look at the Google map real quick. I'm sure everybody knows where Rome is. Let's zoom on in there, see where we're going to be going today. So we're going to take off from Ciampino Airport right down here, and forgive me if I'm butchering these names in Italian. I don't speak Italian, so I probably am. We're going to take off this way. This is only going to be about 26 miles altogether, but this plane is super slow, so it'll probably be 35 miles, which is great because there's a lot to look at. So we're going to come up this way, check out some nice aqueducts over here, come around the northern side of the city, and actually we're going to kind of come over this way. The Coliseum and all that stuff is really, everything worth looking at is kind of in this area right here, all the old historical stuff. So we're going to come around this way and then come up along the inside of the zoo here, cut across the Tiber River, and then loop around this way. They got a bunch of stadiums on the north side, and then we're going to take a really tight turn to come over here because there's a little fort that I want to see right here, which looks awesome. Take a look at Vatican City, and then come back around the south side and land up here at Urbe Airport. And it's all going to be awesome. So much history out here, so much to talk about. I had to leave a lot off, actually, so when we look at little nav map at the end, I'll show you some other things that we flew over, but I just didn't have time to talk about. Okay, so let's lean down here and hit the start button. And I think we get rid of the chocks by cycling the brakes, so let me turn them off and on. Off again. Okay, let me zoom out just a little bit on little nav map. And as usual, this flight plan will be included in the video description. We won't have any add-ons because there aren't any available. There is a payware add-on for this airport, but it was like 20 bucks, and it looked pretty cool, but you know how I feel about that. We'll probably only be flying in and out here once, and I wasn't about to pay that much for an add-on. But if you live around here, you might want to get it. It is available. Outside of that, there wasn't anything out there, and there's nothing needed because it looks that good. And the last time when I was out here, I tried to come to a very, very slow, gentle stop and nose down and was on the verge of spewing out a stream of unsavory language, and then I realized that they actually animated the prop shredding itself, which I just thought was fantastic. So what should have been dismay turned into absolute delight that they'd modeled that, so that was cool. So I think this time we're just going to do a rolling start, so I don't have to worry about doing that again. And here's the taxiway right up here on the left. So this is Ciampino Airport, and there is, like I said, a payware add-on available for it. There might be one available for the one that we're coming into as well, but because I was already rolling the dice with the performance and it was looking so good, I didn't want to add anything extra to it, so check that out on flightsim.to. And actually, this livery is an add-on as well, for free at flightsim.to. So you can pick that up there. If I remember to, I'll also put this in the video description. So the flight plan, if this is your first time to the channel, you have to know how to use a little NavMap, which is a free application and very, very useful if you're just getting into flight simming. And the link that will be in the video description will bring this flight into little NavMap. If you don't know how to do that, and even if you don't know how to use little NavMap, I've got some very short tutorials down in our how-to section that'll tell you how to do that. And of course, the link for our Discord server will be in there, and you guys know that I have been pitching that every single flight, and I've got one more reason that you should sign up for our Discord server. It is so easy to do. You literally just click the button and you're in. Don't be like I was. Don't be a scaredy cat. It's not intimidating. But one of our members is going to start setting up monthly group bush plane flights. And he told us about it the other night, and I was like, that sounds awesome. So initially he's going to make the first one, maybe the first couple of them, lay out the flight plan, send the flight plan to us, send any add-ons that might be available for the airports around there, everything we're going to look at. He'll tell us what types of planes that we're going to be flying, so we're all flying at roughly the same speed, the area that we're going to. And then we'll all hop in there and take a little flight together every once in a while. I probably won't be making any of them because I'm spending all my time making these flight plans, but if some of you guys want to take a crack at it, that would be awesome, and we can all just hang out for an hour or two as we fly around and look at that stuff. So I was just beside myself, but right now we've only got about 50 members in there, and they're from all over the world, so we have some time zone issues. Of course, I'm in the U.S. on the East Coast, so I imagine we could probably work it out so anyone in the U.S. could probably join us, and anyone that feels like staying up all night or waking up real early in other parts of the world. But check that out. Hop on into Discord. Awesome place to hang out. Tons of cool members. Talk about all kinds of cool things. In fact, one of our members, the one that suggested that flight over the Finger Lakes, just went to an air show that they had at the airport that we came into in Geneseo, and posted a bunch of pictures from it. It was awesome. Really, really cool. So thank you, Chris, for that. Not just for the flight plan, but also all the pictures. Incredible. Alright, so here's our runway. Let's come on over here. We'll do some final checks at the hold short line, which will entail nothing but me checking the barrow, because we have no flaps, no lights to worry about. You know what I think is doing this for me? It is the vibrations on this thing. Just really cool. And I should also mention this airport is one of the oldest in the world. They opened this thing up a long time ago, 1916. So it's been around for a while, and it was also the oh no, don't you dare do it. See, that's what I get. I should have just rolled through that. If I would have done that again, I probably would have cussed that time. But it was where they were testing out one of the earliest and maybe the first prototypes of a helicopter back in the 1930s. So that's pretty cool. And I took a look at that thing. I didn't see any videos of it, but I saw some pictures of it, and it looked like something Da Vinci probably would have designed, because I think it had 3 rotors on it, and it did not look anything, the body didn't look like anything like modern helicopters, but it was pretty cool. And they were doing it out here. And this used to be the main airport for the city for a very short time before they built up that big one down by the coast. Alright, I'm going to do the rolling start here, so let's just go ahead and rock and roll. This is not the live weather. We had the wind blowing from the wrong direction. I want to come in this way on both the departure and arrival, so I adjusted that a little bit. And we're up. This thing handles great on the ground. It's easy to get trimmed out. Just really fantastic plane. And you're supposed to sit in the back, but the field of view is a little bit better up here, so we're going to ride up in the passenger seat. And since I didn't have the manual, I don't know what the RPM range is supposed to be, but 65 miles per hour is supposed to be the cruising speed, so I'm just going to try to kind of hold it in that range, and I think around 2,000 RPMs is about where we're supposed to be. So we'll go with that. And even down here, look at this. Once we get a little higher, those buildings will look even better, but all of it, all the way out here, we're about 5 miles from the city here, so I don't know how big the perimeter is for the photogrammetry, but it goes out a pretty good ways. Alright, so a little bit about the history of Rome before we get there, because once we do arrive, it is going to be just non-stop info, so I'll take a few minutes to give you a quick crash course, and as always, disclaimer, do not go take your history exam after watching this channel. Everything I'm about to tell you, I got off the internet, which is dubious at best. So check out these cars down here on the right when we come by. They look fantastic. Everything. Really cool. The first traces of human activity in this region date back roughly 14,000 years on a place called Palatine Hill, which is just west of the Coliseum. I'll show you where that is once we fly over it. And archaeologists believe they selected that spot due to a well-placed clump of land called Tiber Island, which is situated in the middle of the Tiber River, which is what runs through downtown, which they think was likely, and that island's still there. I'll show you that too. Oh no, here I am bragging about it. I think we got some flat stuff down there. Well, we'll look out this side. Yes, amazing. Forget about what you just saw to the left. That looks good. Why'd they get some flat stuff over there? That happens sometimes. But they think they were fording the river at that point. That was the only spot shallow enough, and there was a big hill right there, so I think that's where they believe everything got started out here. And according to Roman mythology, the city was founded by the twin brothers Romulus and Remus, suckled by a she-wolf after they were abandoned on the banks of the Tiber, for fear that they may have been killed by a ruler who was fearing for his fate. And yes, that whole story does share a lot of elements with other foundational religious narratives. Once you go back far enough, they all kind of start to blend together. But no one's really sure of the origin of that story. They think it probably surfaced in written form around 300 BC. According to legend, Romulus went on to kill his brother after a spat about where the city should be founded. And after that, he got to build it on his favorite hill, and he went on to rule as the region's first king, allegedly. And there's some speculation that the name Rome may be a derivation of the name Romulus, but apparently that's also pretty heavily debated. All right, up here on our right, we are going to see the ruins of an ancient aqueduct called the Aqua Claudia. And that thing was started by Caligula in 38 AD and finished by Claudius in 52 AD, hence the name. And this is just one of many that supplied water to the city. This is going to be right down here. And it looks really good. We're going to see little bits and pieces of it. It kind of crumbles up here and then starts back up again. But they have lots of aqueduct ruins out here. But this one was 43 miles long when it was in full force, and a lot of it was underground, apparently. And moved roughly 2 cubic meters of water a second at full flow. So that was quite an engineering marvel of the time. Look at that. Look how detailed that is. See down there? All the arches and everything? And once you get down to the city, I won't point them out because there's too much other stuff to see, but they built big ornate bridges running underneath those things and big archways. Really neat. And I think there's another one. See some other pieces of it up here? There's another one that kind of runs up this way, and it looks like it might be covered. I mean, there's just so many out here, it's hard to keep track of where everything is. But getting back to the history of Rome, a series of kings and oligarchs ran the show up until around the 2nd century BC, after which the local power struggles and warfare plagued the region until the formation of a 3-member political alliance known as the First Triumvirate, which gave rise to none other than Julius Caesar as one of those 3. And man, I did not realize how interesting the story of that guy's rise to power was. I didn't realize he was ruling out in Spain before he came out here. There's more of the aqueduct down there. See it? Look how good that looks. And you can see their little one over here. See it? The smaller one? I mean, that just looks perfect. Oh, they got a tree in the middle of that spot. But that looks really cool. So if you have a little time to look into the history of Julius Caesar, I got really bogged down in that rabbit hole for a while. But it's pretty cool. And the naming of Augustus Caesar as the first Roman emperor is regarded as the start of the age of the Roman Empire, which continued into the late 400s AD, eventually growing to encompass nearly all of modern Europe, North Africa, and portions of the Middle East, most notably Jerusalem. And when it all came crumbling down, the world advanced into the Middle Ages, or Dark Ages if you prefer, finally emerging into the Renaissance in the 14th century, and that all kind of sprang up out here too. Okay, down here to our left, this whole little area over here is a collection of ruins known as the Maxentius Monuments Complex, and these are all part of a villa built by Emperor Maxentius, who ruled from 306 AD until his death 6 years later. And there's 3 main parts to it. The Hippodrome, which is right here, which they think never actually got used. They think that may have been for ceremonial purposes. And then this little thing down here is the Mausoleum of Romulus, which was his son, not that other Romulus, not the one that was suckled by the she-wolf. And the ruins of his villa are down in here, but you really can't see them because they're kind of treed over. Which is unfortunate, but all the rest of that looks pretty good. An interesting note about this place, or at least the guy who built it, is it was likely abandoned after Maxentius was defeated by Constantine at the Battle of Milvian Bridge, where the Emperor Maxentius died from drowning in the Tiber River during the battle. And that is also allegedly the battle which triggered Constantine's conversion to Christianity. So that's where the guy that was fighting Constantine was living, and at least his sons were buried. I'm not sure where they put that guy's body. Alright, we gotta come way back over this way. Want to get a good look at that. Alright, the next thing we're gonna see is the Basilica of St. John, formerly known as the... Alright, take a deep breath here. The major papal, patriarchal, and Roman Archbasilica Cathedral of the Most High Holy Savior and Saint John the Baptist and the Evangelist in Lateran, mother and head of all churches in Rome and in the world. Finally shortening it to the Basilica of St. John. Alright, let me just get back on track and we'll be able to spot this bad boy up here. Look at all those buildings. I mean, my frame rates were still up in the 40s and 50s. It was just really incredible. Alright, here's the Basilica up here. That was founded in 324 and is the oldest public church in Rome. And I'd love to tell you more about it, but the whole wiki page was written just like that former title, which is nearly impossible to follow or understand. But it also looks fantastic. One thing I can tell you is that it was built on the site of an old Roman fort, and they say that a lot of that fort can still be seen underneath the place, which is extremely cool. And there's the Coliseum. So we're just going to kind of circle around this way over the top and see if I can track my notes and our route at the same time. And we'll kind of come back around this way as we're heading up to the airport, which is right up there. Look how cool that looks. And I don't know if I was reading it properly, because Vatican City is over here, but I think they were saying that's where the Pope's main office is, but that would seem weird that it's not in the Vatican, so I don't know. Alright, there's something everyone's going to recognize, the old Coliseum. That was completed in 80 AD and is the largest ancient amphitheater ever built, and the largest one, of course, still standing from ancient times. And at maximum capacity, that thing could hold up to 80,000 spectators, which is a lot more than most of the modern stadiums that we've seen on this channel. That is pretty incredible. And since the footprint isn't as big as some of the other modern ones, I'm guessing it was just really steep and they jammed a lot of people in there. Right over here in this big green area, we're not going to be able to see too much of it, but that is an area that was called the Baths of Trajan and the Domus Aurea. The baths were completed in 96 AD and served up a delightful evening of communal bathing to Roman citizens, which must have been a real hoot. And the Domus Aurea, which is Latin for Golden House, was a massive palace that Nero built for himself after Rome burnt to the ground in 64 AD. During which Nero probably did not actually play a fiddle, by the way. I had to look into that, since those did not yet exist. But however, he was reported to have donned a lute player's costume as he lamented the destruction of the city. Apparently far more into theatrics than anything else, as he fancied himself a bit of a thespian. Yeah, there's a lot of trees kind of covering those ruins, but you'll be able to definitely see these ruins. This is the Forum here. And you can kind of think of that like the mall in modern Washington, D.C. That was kind of the center of civic and political life back then. Had a lot of stuff down there. And this hill right here is Palatine Hill. So this is where the oldest ruins were found. This little hill right here. And when we come back around, you'll see where the Tiber Island is right there. This is the Tiber River running through here. And this gigantic white thing here is the Victor Emmanuel II National Monument. They built that over 50 years from 1885 to 1935 to honor the first king of a unified Italy. And then this thing right here is the Pantheon. That was built in 126 AD by Hadrian on the site of a temple that was built during the reign of Augustus around the year 0. I always wanted to say that. And the first one, like everything else in Rome, burnt down in the Great Fire. Alright, how are we tracking? Gotta zoom in a little bit on a little nav map or we're gonna lose track of where we're going. Alright, I don't know if we're over far enough to see it down here. We're gonna look for the Mausoleum of Augustus, which is a big round thing down here somewhere. There it is right there. So that was his mausoleum, which before being excavated just a few centuries ago had been covered with so much dirt that there was nothing but a little hill on the landscape. And there was even a castle on top of it for a while. So that's pretty crazy. Alright, we're coming up on a bunch of... You know, we're just not going to have time to talk about some of that stuff down there, but I'll show it to you on a little nav map at the end in case you want to fly out even slower and take a look at it all. So a lot of these sports complexes we're going to see up here were built for the, or at least used during the 1960 Summer Olympics, which they had out here in Rome. And this thing here is called Flaminio Stadium, which was also, that one was built specifically for the Summer Olympics. This big one over here had been around for a while before then. But they say this thing's abandoned now, and kind of decrepit, but they're trying to rehab it. But they said it's been abandoned for quite a while. And these things here are performing arts centers. And then this thing here is called the, what is that called? The Small Sports Palace. It's something else in Italian. And on little NavMap it looks run down like that, but on the Google map it looks brand spanking new. They used that for basketball during the Olympics, so I think they have rehabbed that one more recently. And this is a huge national museum they have over here. And then we're going to come around the top and look at this big stadium, which is called the Olympic Stadium over here. And they actually started building that big one over there in 1928, but World War II put a kink in those plans, so they didn't finish it until 1953, just in time for the Olympics. And the current capacity of that thing, look how big it is. 10,000 less than the max capacity of the Coliseum. So, yeah, they were really jamming them into that Coliseum. Look at the detailing on this bridge. Look at that. You can see the statues on the end of it. No blocks underneath any of them. Just perfect. Okay, we're going to come up here just a little bit to see. I didn't fly over it the first time. Oh no, it looks like we got some bad trees there and a hard freeze. This should be the only one we're going to endure. They've got a French war cemetery up here from World War II, and I cut inside of that last time, so we're going to fly over there and see if we can get a look at it, because it looked pretty good on the satellite map. So we'll see what we got. This is a big governmental building of some kind here. So once again, I'm just completely stymied how everything can look so good and then just have one little block of bad trees like that. But I definitely give them a pass because the rest of this looks so amazing. Look at this. I mean, there's buildings like this all over the place. I don't even know what that one is. I mean, there's just so many of them, there'd be no way to talk about every one of them. Alright, this cemetery should be on top of this hill up here. Let's see what we got. The landscape looked really cool, so hopefully it looks just as good in the sim, even though it appears to be surrounded by those blocky trees. On Google, it said there are 15 forts out here, maybe even 18. And there's only really 3 that we're flying anywhere near. I'm going to show you 2 of them. Even one of them is going to be pretty obscured. But one of them you'll definitely be able to tell what it is because it looks really, really cool. Alright, how's this cemetery look? And wait till you see this cemetery we're going to go over at the end. It may even give those ones up in Turin a run for their money. It looks so great, the detailing of all the tombstones and everything. That looks like it's got some slightly bigger trees in the map, the overhead satellite map, but that's about what it looks like, that cemetery there. So look at this thing. They could jam 10,000 more people into the Coliseum, which could probably squeeze right into that opening right there. Can you imagine being back there in the day? Nobody wearing deodorant or anything? I guess I could all go bathe together after they're done. Okay, so we're going to fly by the top of this hill right over here, which has a couple of huge radio towers on it. The fort up there is called Fort Mont Mario, completed in 1882, which I think is when they completed most of the other perimeter forts, which look a lot like the ones did in Antwerp, where they're just kind of situated all around the perimeter of the city. So just kind of that parallelogram shape. But I really couldn't. You can kind of see the details of it on the satellite map. You really can't see it here because of the trees. But there's also a big observatory up here on a building they call the Rome Observatory, but Google says it's not currently open to the public. And one of the reviewers says that the lady at the front desk is very unsavory, so just don't even bother going in. But you can see the dome on top of it. And I can tell you as an astronomy nut that nobody is observing much of anything being this close to these city lights, maybe looking at the moon. So there's one of the radio towers, and let's just see if I can take a good angle to try to get a look at that wall of that fort. So the one wall kind of runs like this, and then there's sides going up like that. We'll see what we can spot. And then the observatory, you'll see the dome of it on the other side of these trees here. Look at that bridge down there. Can't get enough of that. Love a good bridge. Alright, there's the observatory right there. You can see the dome on it. So this right here is kind of like the outer moat region. So you can kind of see the wall there. That's where the little moat surrounding it would have been. That's a great spot for a fort, huh? So now we got to do a little cutting back and forth. There's the Vatican over there, so we got to cut this way. And I'll show you the best looking fort out here. It's called the Castle of the Holy Angel. It started life in AD 139 as the tomb of Hadrian and his family. And then it was converted to a fortress in 401 and then ransacked by the Visigoths just 9 years later, who tossed and torched everything, including all the royal ashes. And by the 1400s, the papacy had taken control, along with everything else out here, and turned it into a castle. Because why the heck not? And it's right next door to the Vatican. They even built a big walkway connecting the two complexes. I'm going to see if we can see it, but I got to come out here because we're going to have to take a big looping turn to see it. That's probably good enough. I'm going to use our rudder pedals too, see how tight I can take this. Look at this building here. Again, just stuff all over the place. Looks incredible. This is the Palace of Justice, named by the locals the Awful Palace because it's incredibly ornate, but apparently there was a lot of corruption involved in building that. So, probably with a lot of stuff out here that was going on, but it looks incredible. Alright, here's the castle. We're going to get a nice look at that, and we'll see if the walkway kind of comes along this side of it and then goes up to St. Peter's Basilica over here. Built on the reported burial place of Peter after he was martyred out here. And here's one for all you Bible Bowl champions. Who else got martyred in Rome? Only two of them. It was Peter and Paul. But they just threw Peter's body in a little shallow grave out here on the outskirts of town. Paul got burial in a Roman citizen's tomb. It was a woman, because Paul was a Roman citizen, unlike Peter. So there's that castle. Look at that thing. Look how cool. Okay, and here's the walkway. You see it down there? So that connects all the way, and there's some turrets and stuff on this side of it. They're kind of in a shadow right now. You can't see them. But that connects over there, and here is the Pope's house. Right here. That looks fantastic. Really great. Golly, look how detailed that is. Just beautiful. And Tiber Island, which we might get a better look at from the other side. Okay, so let's see, where are we here? There's the Circus Maximus, and Tiber Island is right here, so that's where they were fording everybody. Once we kind of come around this side, we get a better look at it. And then they built up on Palatine Hill, which is right over here at the end of the forum, is where the 14,000-year-old remains of human habitation are. That is beautiful. Look at that. Oh, you can really see the walkway now. Look at that. How cool is that? Never been out to Rome. Never been to Europe, as a matter of fact. Definitely on my bucket list. I got a personal tour from one of our members who has been out here 3 times. Took me on a group flight the other night. Look at that crane sticking up there. This is just an incredible city. Boy, Turin is way up there too, and we're not too far south of Turin here, so maybe there's just something about this region. I mean, they just nailed it out here. Really cool. Love it. Alright, we gotta come down this way just a little bit because there's another very interesting landmark I want to show you guys. And that Basilica of St. Peter, by the way, was completed in 1626. I thought it was even older than that. But they did have an original structure that was out there that was built by Constantine in the 4th century, so that must have been pretty quick after his conversion to Christianity. Alright, we'll cut in here. Look at those gardens down there. Again, I just don't know what all this stuff is. There's just too much out here. But plenty of eye candy, that's for sure. So this thing here is called the Monument to Garibaldi. It's a huge statue of a guy on top of a horse. And it sounds like that guy was a big general back during the unification of Italy. And they unveiled that one in 1895, and I read it was originally designed with the general facing the Vatican. This thing right here. And in 1929 they turned it around so he was facing Rome. And that was right after Italy and the Vatican settled some long-standing disputes about land ownership and political oversight. This whole area out here used to be called the Papal States until it became part of the Kingdom of Italy. So the church owned all of it and ran all of it. And I think that's a big photo op spot too, because there was a little camera next to that in the Google Maps. Alright, I gotta make sure I hit this next track because this next one's kind of hard to see. But it is definitely interesting and worth pointing out. And there's the Circus Maximus. I think that's the biggest hippodrome, ancient hippodrome. Okay, this next thing is called the Pyramid of Cestius. And I had no idea this thing was out here. And it's really old, going back to just before the first millennium. There it is right there. It's hard to spot. It's on the other side of our little bar right there. See that right there? It was a tomb for a guy named Gaius Cestius, who was a bigwig for the big religious organization, and one of the big religious... There were 4 big religious organizations, which I also had no knowledge of whatsoever, out in Rome during the ancient of days. And as for why he got such an opulent place to stick his body, I have no idea. But I guess those organizations were in charge of arranging all the festivals and the parties and all that kind of stuff. So maybe the guy knew how to have a good time. We're going to have one more series of bath ruins. And I think they're going to be right out here in this big green area. It's kind of hard to spot the ruins now. They're all really treed over. Oh, there they are right there. Okay, they're really... You can see they don't have a roof on them. That's them right there. And that is very impressive looking from the ground. You got to check out some pictures of that place. That was built around 200 AD and was in operation all the way up through the mid-500s. And I read that what's left of it looks so cool that it became the inspiration for architectural icons like Penn Station and the Senate building in Canada. Look how big that is and how much of it's still standing. That's a lot. Alright, we got to come down some. I do not want to be this high, so I'm going to trim down just a little bit. I haven't even touched my trim yet. And that looks like another aqueduct right there. Look at that. A little gate of some kind over there. Just watch my airspeed. Let's pull those RPMs back a little bit. As we descend, I'd like to be at about 1,500 feet. And that big white building over there is their food and agriculture building, if you're curious about what all the big white buildings are. Alright, we're going to come around this side of this huge train station called the Roma Termini. And I thought that meant terminal, which maybe it does, but they said it was named after the local baths, which are called thermae. So I'm not sure. Termini sounds a lot more like terminal to me, but again, I don't speak Italian. Maybe that's how it translates. And the one that we're going to see out here today was completed in 1950, but they've had stations in various forms out here since 1863, which is kind of the dawn of train transport for people. And it also looks amazing. So let me just get kind of lined up here. And I don't know what this is. If you've been out here, let me know. It looked like they were saying that that was a train station too. We'll see it out of the right side of the plane when we come back around. I thought it was like a toll plaza or something, but it's not. It appears to be over a train line, but it's not real wide, so I'm not sure what that is. It might just be a walkway to get over to the other side, but it looks a little more substantial than a walkway too. Not sure what's up with that. So this is the 5th busiest train port in all of Europe, moving 850 trains a day and over 150 million passengers a year, which just completely blew my mind. So of course I had to see what the busiest station in Europe is, and I figured it was probably Paris, and it is. And they're moving almost 220 million through that place each year. But take a guess at how many people use the busiest one in the world. That's Shinjuku Station in Tokyo. 1.2 billion a year. How crazy is that? That is a lot of people taking trains. And they said that one's actually like a complex of 5 stations. The only thing I would add to that train station is a bunch of dirty old trains parked out there. But it still looks pretty good. And right over here is the Basilica of St. Mary. I'll show you that on the satellite map. That also looks really good if you fly up close. I took like 10 test flights out here trying to find the best way to see as much as possible. Alright, we're going to swing out here just a little bit to get a good look at this cemetery, which is right below us. Check this thing out. This is called Verano Cemetery. Look at that. You can see all of those little tombstones down there. It's a lot more treed over than those ones out in Turin. Let's turn out here just a little bit more and then I'll cut around. There's our runway right there. Look at that. Love it. Just absolutely love it. I bet if you shrank the trees down a little bit, which of course you can do in the sim, you'd see even more. That is really cool. And that was named after a famous Roman family from days gone by, and they've been planting people out there for over 2,000 years. And I guess for a while there was some kind of regulation about burying people within the city limits, so they had to stop. Of course now they're burying people in there again. And there was a very long list of famous people buried out here, none of whom I recognize, but I'm sure most Italians would know quite a few of them. Celebrities of various sorts, lots of politicians. Okay, so we're setting up for our approach into Urbe Airport, inaugurated by Mussolini himself in 1928 is Littorio Airport. And this was the main civilian field out here until World War II. For all the civvy traffic, and then it was bombed into pieces during the war. And they obviously rebuilt it, but just a few years later they opened that place that we took off from. And that became the main airport, so now this is just a GA airport. And in the 1930s, they built a big racetrack into the airport grounds, and portions of it use the runway. And you can still see parts of it up on the northern end of the runway. We'll see if we can spot them from the angle that we're coming in at. And then lastly, over here, this big green area is called Via Ada Park. And that whole place is a bit of an enigma to me. It was owned by the House of Savoy until 1878, and that was that crew that built all those castles up in Turin. We got to come down a little bit here. And it was taken over by Count Telfner, a Swiss guy who named it after his wife Ada. But today the public areas are run by local officials from Rome, and the private areas are controlled by the Egyptian embassy, and I have no idea why that is. And they got a couple of old forts and bunkers up there, which are too treed over for us to see from this angle, but we'll see. The big fort, which is about as old as that one on the hill, is somewhere over here, but I don't think we're going to be able to see it. We're going to be too low. And we need to be even lower. So I guess the House of Savoy was building stuff all the way down here too. Had quite a bit of influence up in Turin. And there's a furniture store right here. We're going to fly over it, and you can see all the signs and stuff on the front of it, which I just thought was great. Alright, so I'm going to try to remember to... So the racetrack part of this comes off the top and comes over here, and then there's another one that loops around this side and then comes back over here and connects to the runway down here. It looks like this side doesn't connect to the runway anymore, but at the end we check out little NavMap, you'll see both the big things coming off the sides there. But I don't know what our stall speed is or anything else on this, so we'll just kind of fly it by feel and see how we do. And check out the signs on the side of that building. And man, this vibration is set at 50%. You can turn it up even more than this, but I felt like it was going to shake the molars out of my head. It was crazy. I do have my butt kicker turned on, so it'll shake a lot, which is definitely neat. So there it is. There's the park. Yeah, we're not going to be able to see the fort, but we will be able to see the furniture store. Let's come over this side a little bit. We got to check this out. There's a stadium off to the right. If you're following this flight pan, when you take off, if you look off to the right, probably 2 or 3 miles, there's a huge sports complex. You'll see it sticking up in the air. And it's within the photogrammetry zone. I flew out there. It doesn't look great. So if you spot it out of the corner of your eye and you want to go see it, you can probably just skip it. Doesn't look all that great. There's that furniture store. Check out the sign in front of that place. Love it. Just great. Look at that. Awesome. So that fort is probably right to our left right now. And we're too low to be able to see it. So we'll come on down here, take a minute to look at little NavMap, and then we'll wrap it up. Look at that. Just so great. My dream, truly, is to get... We have a lot of people that watch our channel that are not doing any flight simming. They just like to watch for the tours, which I think is fantastic. My dream is to get people into flight simming. I think it is the greatest hobby, and at the beginning of this video I said I wanted to try to save the world by simming, and I think we can do it. What better way to break down all these walls between people around the world than to just show everybody where we're from? It's so cool. Never mind learning about all the planes, learning about how to fly them. Yeah, we're too low to really see the racetrack from here, but that's alright. I don't know why this threshold is so displaced, maybe to clear those buildings, but the runway itself is not very long. I think the whole thing is about 3,900 feet or so. We're still going way too fast, so we'll just flare to burn that off. And I'm going to try not to shred up my propeller this time. Alright, back pressure on that stick. And I'm not sure this thing even has brakes in real life, so I'm just going to kind of let it roll itself to a stop and go real easy on those brakes. Real easy. We kind of missed our turn off, but this thing was probably built to drive across grass, so that's exactly what we're going to do. Yeah, the next turn off isn't until way down the other side. So we'll just pull over here in case anyone's coming in behind us. Oh, this is... Look at how it's shaking all around. This sounds... And you know what else is cool? If you bring the stick all the way back, listen. I'm banging it on the back stop there. You can actually hear the little thumping sound on the airframe. How cool is that? And if you open the windows, it sounds great. And if you can make the passenger appear, I was told that she'll lean to the left and lean to the right as you're turning, which I've never seen happen in the sim, which is just awesome, but I could not get her to show up. So I'm not sure. I was pushing the button on the little pad there to try to get her to show up, so if you have this plane and know how to get her to show up, let me know. I couldn't get it to work. Alright, so let's just cut the fuel, and it'll run for a second until the fuel actually runs out. And that's fine, so let me put the brakes on. Alright, let's look at little NavMap. Show you all this incredible stuff out here. Alright, take the centering off. So the sports area is this thing right here. And you will definitely see it. This goes way up in the air, but it looks really, really bad in the sim. Didn't get a touch-up job. So we came out this way, we flew right over the tops of these two big race courses out here. You could kind of see them on the left side of the plane, and here's where what's left of that aqueduct is. Look at how long this thing is. I think they said the last maybe 7 miles of it is the only portion that wasn't originally underground, so lots and lots of this thing were built underground, which just blows my mind even more than them building this elevated part here. But it was long, and there's those little chunks. You can see those in the sim. That is just so cool. Okay, then we came over here to the Maxentius complex. So there's the mausoleum where Romulus is buried. And can we see the villa? Yeah, even in here it's pretty treed in. And I don't know how much of it is left because this is all I could really see of it. But I guess parts of the foundation are probably still left out there. All right, then we took a big waving, winding turn to come over here. We saw the... Is this the... Oh, here's the church with a very, very long name that's now called the Basilica of St. John, which looked awesome. And there's a train station. We'll get that when we come back around. I'm going to try to roughly follow our flight plan. Yeah, you really just couldn't see the Baths of Trajan. And you can see, in real life, you can see everything. So there was a lot more trees in the sim. But this was also where the Golden House was. Nero's big palace he had out here. Let's see if we can see where that was. Is that marked out here anywhere? There. So I guess that's it. Boy, there's not much left of that, is it? That's where it would have been. But he had a good view of the Coliseum. Here's the Forum over here, and look at this. This thing looked amazing. You could see all of this stuff down here. That was just awesome. Really cool. And, you know, I'm kind of wondering, considering how deep the mausoleum of Augustus was buried, if all of this stuff was at one point buried as well, and they had to dig it all out. So here's the hill, Palatine Hill, and here's where the Tiber Island is. So this is where everybody was fording the river back in the day, and then this is where the whole thing got started on top of this hill here. And there's that very opulent monument to Victor Emmanuel II. That thing also looked just, wow, incredible. Really cool. Okay, then we came out here, and there's the Pantheon there, which looked great. And then there is the place where Augustus was interred, or his ashes were anyway. They cremated people back then. So just imagine this. I saw an artist rendering of what it looked like back in the day when there was a castle on it, and it was just a little lump in the ground. And then they built a church on it for a while, and then they built a fort on top of it, and then dug the whole thing back out again. But that's pretty cool. All right, some things we didn't really get to see. This is called the People's Square right here. You can definitely see that in the sim. And there's a little museum to Da Vinci out here, and there's a couple of Da Vinci museums, but you really couldn't pick it out from the buildings. But you'll notice that thing if you're looking for it. And then over here is the National Gallery of Modern Art, which looks really, really great too, but we were just swinging too wildly around to see it. You can see we flew right over the top of it there. And then here is the stadium that's no longer in use. What they're going to do with that, we don't know. And you can see here, this looks just like it did in the sim, kind of run down. This is where they were playing basketball for the Olympics, but in the Google map, it is like very white, like they just repainted the top of that, so they may be fixing that place up. Here's the Performing Arts Centers over here. And then we came around over here. There's the government building for whatever it is. This is the Olympic Stadium, which is huge. Of course, they're playing football in there now. All right, let's look at this cemetery. Yeah, I think they put a few more trees in the sim than are actually there, but you can see that place looks pretty nice. All right, so then we came down this way to where the fort is. All right, so let's see. All right, so that would have been the back wall that I was pointing out. The front wall, which had been, the moat would have run around like this. We couldn't see that, too many trees. So that was the back wall of the fort that I was pointing out while we were flying over it. And they got these huge radio towers. You can see the shadow of it right there. You could see that in the sim. And then here's where the observatory is. Very nice. All right, then we took a wild turn to get back around here to look at these castles. There's the awful palace, the Palace of Justice. Look at that thing. A lot of corruption went into building that. This is just really cool. Look at that place. That looked amazing. And there's that walkway. See it coming over there? And you can see they got the... Oh, it's not turrets. That's a shadow. So they built it up like an aqueduct with just arches going underneath it. But it is crenulated along the top. You can see all those there. Look like little teeth. And then here's the Pope's house over here. And then there it is, St. Peter's Basilica. And I'll see if I can show you where Paul's buried. They built another church on top of Paul's grave. All right, there's the statue for the guy that was originally facing the Vatican, and then they turned him to face Rome over there after they settled their differences. And then there's the pyramid. Kind of tough to spot that, but I think it is one of the POIs in the sim. But that's it. And they have recently refurbished this. You can see on the sides of it here, I think that was really, really, really run down. I think they rebuilt a lot of that because it's old, over 2,000 years old. Let me see if I can spot. Okay, so here is the Basilica of St. Paul. So that's where he was buried, about 2 miles from where he was executed in a Roman necropolis, thanks to the generosity of someone who said, you can take my grave. All right, so there's the first place we saw from Maxentius, and then we came up around here to see the big train station. Wow, there aren't a lot of trains in real life going through there. I can see 1, 2, so I guess that's about what it looks like. 150 million people a year. That's a lot. And here's that cemetery. Well, there are a lot of trees, but not as many as it looked like in the sim. But definitely a lot of gravestones. And any that were exposed, you could definitely see them. And that looked awesome. Really cool. Nice. Okay, so here's that thing I didn't know what it was. Look at this. Obviously, those are all trains running underneath it. So is it just a walkway? I don't know. And they got some over here to the side, too. Let me know if you're from the area. And then that the Church of St. Mary, which I did not point out as we were flying over, is right here, which also looks great. I didn't put a bookmark on it, but that's where it is, just to the west of the train station. Okay, so here's the park that was owned by all kinds of people, and now, for some reason, the Egyptian embassy. And look how easy it is to see this fort now. Yeah, when you're at a higher angle, you can definitely spot it. Fort Antony. Looks just like the other one. And they got some bunkers out here. There's a bunker there. There's a bunker here. And there was a big palace out here for a while. I don't know if it's still standing, but I think the Savoys had built a huge palace out here. And I don't know, is there a palace down there? Nope. Nope, not seeing anything. And then here is where you can see what is left of. You can't see all of it because we landed this airport and I can't turn it off, but this was all part of the original racetrack that was out here. And it came down here and connected up down here. Pretty cool, huh? And this was the main airport for a while. So just to give you an idea of where the main airport, if you're flying jets, you're probably coming in here, and all of the stars that I was ever taking was bringing me in from the north or the south because that's the way the big runway headings are. So I really just don't think I ever came right over the city before. And it's too bad because I really missed out on a gym. So that's Rome, guys. Take a look at our Discord server. If you want to get in on those bush plane flights, that is going to be a lot of fun. I hope you'll join me. I'm a really nice guy. It's fun to have those chats with people that are watching our channel and making comments on there, comments on the page, on YouTube. Let's have some fun together in there. Had an absolute blast. Learned tons of things just like always, and I cannot wait to see you all again in the skies. Later.